I booked the motel room next to ours. 4 a.m. rules in a roadside lobby. I didn't come for sleep. I came to stop guessing. At 4 in the morning, a roadside motel lobby has the moral clarity of a waiting room that refuses to flatter you. The vending machine blinks its fixed vocabulary. The coffee urn breathes like a small, polite animal, and the ficus in the corner does its unambitious best. The night clerk watches a muted game show with the professional compassion of someone who has seen many contestants lose gently. I took a seat beneath the framed print of a lighthouse that has never met a storm, and let the automatic doors practice their patience on no one. My name is Sam. I write road maps for a living, which is just a polite term for telling tomorrow where to stand and for how long. For months my wife, Lauren, and I had been good at our life in the way a well-run meeting is good. It starts on time, ends on time, and nobody remembers the point. We'd retired the grand fights. What we had left was weather, mild, respectable, cumulative. At 1:11 a.m. she texted, "We're still loading the trailer, might nap at the office. Don't wait up." Not a lie. A hallway. I've followed enough hallways to know they loop in the same neighborhood until you admit you're lost. The clerk pushed a styrofoam cup toward me. "Coffee," she said, not unkindly. "Thanks," I said, and poured what the urn called coffee and my mouth called loyalty. I stared past the glass doors at a parking lot performing the national anthem of sodium lights. A moth did a slow insistence against the glass, as if the night would apologize if the angle were right. Somewhere in the motel, a washing machine announced a second act. That's when Chris came in from the sliding doors, Lauren's operations lead, a man built like a useful sentence, economical, with muscle where verbs go. He had a hoodie with our nonprofit's logo on it and a tote bag that had clearly dragged its share of extension cords and better days. He saw me, and crucially, didn't pretend he hadn't. He lifted 2 fingers in a greeting that asked for permission to be small. "Sam," he said, "couldn't sleep or didn't try." "Didn't want to guess," I said. He smiled with relief that wasn't triumph. "Trailers loaded. Your wife is asleep under a banner that says we build together. The banner is not a blanket, but it's trying out for the role." He gestured toward the coffee, raised his eyebrows. The clerk nodded and turned the urn spigot like a blessing. "You booked here?" he asked. "Room 212, I said, "next to the one I think we want to keep calling ours." He nodded with the professionalism of a man who knows where weight belongs. We sat with cups that preferred function over nuance. The TV flashed a contestant's loss. The clerk gently looked away. "I don't owe you an explanation," Chris said to the neutral carpet. "I can offer one." "I don't want a confession," I said. "I want an invitation." The sentence surprised me only in how long it had been waiting. He glanced at me and across at the lighthouse print, as if to triangulate decency. "Lauren told me to go home," he said. "I told her I'd rather go somewhere the lights make sense. This lobby is my chapel. No verdicts before sunrise." "No verdicts before sunrise," I repeated. "We should stencil that on our fridge." He grinned. "Write it down before the waffles distract you," he said, nodding toward the breakfast nook where a waffle iron slept like a friend you forgive everything. "Waffles before arguments. It's the only theology that's held up on the road." I laughed and the clerk smiled because laughter at this hour is a kind of tip. "We do rules," I said. "Or we used to. Lately we've been doing warranties." "Print new ones," he said. He tore a sheet from a pad labeled Incident Report and slid it to me with a motel pen attached by a chain that believed in captivity. "Before light talks you into pretending you remember." I wrote as if the paper had requested utility. If a night lights you up, invite me while you're lacing your shoes. I'll come if I can. If I can't, I won't turn your light into a report. No photogenic secrets. Nothing we'd enjoy telling better without each other in the story. Touch in daylight every day. Even just a wrist at the sink, a forehead in the hallway, a shoulder while the kettle thinks it's important. Right of reserve. When the voice wants to climb, step back and read the scoreboard before you rename the game. If either of us starts wanting to be wanted somewhere else, say it while it's small, not after it has luggage. NB. Rules are tools, not weapons. Chris read without gratting. Good, he said. Add waffles before arguments or the morning will eat you. I added it, smiled, and felt the paper do the smallest of breaths. My phone buzzed on the faux wood side table, skittered, subsided. Lauren, asleep here, don't drive, breakfast. Another bubble followed like a person correcting humility. Come see the gym at 8. We'll roll up the mats together. Relief is not fireworks. It is architecture. It redistributes load-bearing beams. Good, Chris asked, not nosy, just operational. Better, I said. She invited. The clerk slid a small paper plate toward us with 2 biscuits that refused to be good but tried to be present. We ate like men who had been taught to call truce with carbohydrates. At 5:02, the waffle iron huffed awake, and the clerk handed me a styrofoam cup of batter with the reverence usually reserved for candles. Press flip, wait for the beep, she said. No verdicts before sunrise. Store policy, I asked. Lobby policy, she said. And life policy. People's brains get their licenses back around 9. We made 2 waffles and called them strategy. Chris picked up his tote and stood with the posture of a man who knows when to leave so the room can breathe. Tell the banner it did its job, he said, and left without making the doors think too hard. At 7:50, the school gym smelled like lemons, trying not to brag. The rolled mats sulked on the sidelines. I respected their honesty. Lauren stood with 2 coffees and the face she wears when the next 2 hours will include repetitive labor and small victories. Her hair had decided to be useful. She handed me the cup marked black because some mercies should be muscle memory. Breakfast, she said. Lobby, I said, and offered the incident report as if it were a treaty written by a smaller, kinder government. She read it with the gentleness she reserves for drafts that want to live, and the ruthlessness she uses on anything that wastes volunteers' time. No verdicts before sunrise, she said, smiling without apology. That sounds like you got yourself deputized by the night shift. By a lighthouse print in a waffle iron, I said, and by Chris. She tucked the paper into her hoodie pocket like a passport. Help me roll the mats, she said. If that's not an invitation, correct me. We rolled, taped, stacked. The volunteer named Maria asked where the extension cords wanted to feel useful, and Lauren showed her with the competence that made me fall in love when competence wasn't yet a fashion. A teenager asked how much gaffer tape is respectful. Lauren said, enough to live, not enough to punish. We felt the gym decide to forgive us our daylight. Chris arrived with a bakery box that civilization had named DONUTS. He set it on a folding table and said, waffles before arguments, donuts before contrition. No one argued because sugar is better at law than pride. During a lull, Lauren bumped my shoulder with hers. Let's admit something while it fits in a sentence, she said. Okay. We got polite, she said. I want to get exact. Exact is a weather I can live in, I said. I pledge wrist and invitation. I pledge invitation, not subpoena, she said. When I text come, I mean, stand next to me while I do the thing I chose, not rescue me from consequences. When you text come, I will arrive without a gavel. Deal, I said. Also, right of reserve scoreboard before renaming the game, and no photogenic secrets. She touched my wrist, the daylight version, and said, daylight. I said, daylight, and Chris, passing with a bundle of caution tape, said, daylight, in the tone of a man who appreciates good doctrine when it minds its volume. We worked until the gym believed in us more than we deserved and less than we feared. At 10, when the first families arrived with the complicated hope you only see in daylight, the room did not embarrass them. It did not try to be more than it was, a set of lines on a floor and people who would show up again tomorrow. At noon, when the line thinned, Lauren taped our rules to the inside of the supply closet door with 2 pieces of blue painter's tape, which is the staff of life. We'll need to read this again when we're tired and trying to unplug a fan with our teeth, she said, especially the weapons part. NB, I said. Footnotes are the only scripture that survives the refrigerator. We closed with fewer mishaps than forecast and more gratitude than scheduled. In the car, Lauren stuck the rules under the sun visor like a backstage call sheet, and at home, we moved them to the fridge under the magnet shaped like a boat we bought a summer we didn't ruin. I drew a grid on the back and filled the square labeled wrist because some completions deserve ink. That week we argued at 3 in the afternoon like citizens and split a donut like a treaty at 4. On Thursday, I closed my laptop at 10 because the wrist rule refuses to enforce itself. On Friday, she texted, come, and I arrived at a loading dock and held a door for 15 minutes while a line of people who weren't me had their burdens made lighter by seriousness. Saturday night, we watched the Motel waffle iron on a road trip and let it do its small benevolence before we attempted anything like victory. Every now and then, when a night tries to break itself in half, I go back to the lobby and rent an hour beside the lighthouse that keeps promising storms it will never meet. I sit with the coffee that does its job and the clerk who knows the difference between a paper jam and a crisis. If Chris happens to walk in, we compare knots and policies like men who have decided maintenance is a love language. If the clerk taps the no verdicts before sunrise card, I nod because my brain doesn't get its license back until 9. If you came for scandal, I owe you a worse motel and better gossip. Here, what I have instead, an incident report with 6 lines, a gym that forgave tape, a clerk who knew when to hand out waffles before arguments, and 2 people who decided the opposite of a secret isn't a confession, it's an invitation. The rest is upkeep. Waffles before arguments, no verdicts before sunrise, hands steady on mats and doors, and a wrist every day in daylight. The exact moment a life decides to stay where it's wanted.